Imagine walking past a towering skyscraper that's currently under construction.
Okay.
You snap your fingers, and magically, all the scaffolding just completely disappears. The glass is still there, the steel beams are still there, but the foundation holding the actual workers up, gone.
Wow. Yeah, that's a disaster.
Right. You'd have an immediate multi-billion-dollar crisis on your hands.
Hmm.
And, quietly behind closed doors, that is exactly what artificial intelligence is doing to the modern workplace right now.
It is. It is essentially an architectural crisis for human capital. We are watching a massive structural collapse of the traditional corporate talent pyramid.
Mhm.
And the ripples, I mean, they're going to reach everyone from the mailroom to the boardroom.
And this isn't some futuristic sci-fi hypothetical, right? It's happening today. So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to figure out exactly what happens to the future of work when the traditional starter job just, well, disappears.
Yeah, the vanishing entry-level role.
Yeah. Exactly. And to guide us, we have this fascinating research out recently by an organizational expert named Jonathan Westover. He calls this phenomenon the AI-powered entry-level paradox. And early in his research, he drops a statistic that made me completely stop in my tracks.
Oh, the hiring drop.
Yeah. For everyone listening, get this. He notes that between late 2024 and early 2026, U.S. entry-level job postings plummeted by 35%.
It's a staggering number.
It's massive. I mean, 35% in 2 years sounds almost apocalyptic. But hold on, are we absolutely sure this is AI hollowing out the bottom of the workforce? Couldn't this just be, I don't know, a post-pandemic tech recession or companies freezing their hiring because interest rates are high?
What's fascinating here is that the data actually proves it's not just a general economic freeze. It's highly targeted.
Absolutely.
Well, the broader economic climate always plays some role, sure. But this isn't a uniform cross-industry drop. If you look at sectors with highly digitized workflows and massive amounts of historical data, so we are talking about professional services, finance, technology, the reductions in entry-level hiring are actually closer to 40 or 50%.
Wait, really? Half the starter jobs?
Just gone. Poof. Half of them. But meanwhile, if you look at healthcare, education, or the skilled trades, the numbers are holding incredibly steady.
Oh, because you can't have an AI wire a house or, like, draw blood.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Those roles either require a physical presence, or they have strict regulatory constraints, or they just involve messy, real-world tasks that completely resist automation. So this proves the drop is directly tied to digitized workflows being handed over to machines.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if a job involves pushing data around, the starter positions are vanishing. Let's look at why companies are doing this in the first place, because I imagine it's not just malice, right? It's math.
It is entirely about the math. Organizations are looking at AI's ability to handle routine cognitive tasks. Things like data compilation, basic coding, drafting emails, answering Tier 1 customer inquiries.
The grunt work.
Right, the grunt work. And they are realizing the machine can do it much faster, it's more consistent, and, crucially, it doesn't require a salary or health benefits or vacation time.
Right. Okay, so looking at those savings, if I'm a CEO, I'm thrilled. I mean, it looks like a massive operational win, but there has to be a catch, because historically, those grunt work jobs weren't just about getting the spreadsheets formatted, were they?
No, they were not. And this is the paradox Westover is talking about. Historically, these junior roles served a crucial dual function within a company. There was this implicit psychological contract in entry-level work.
A psychological contract.
Yeah. The organization got relatively cheap labor to execute mundane, routine tasks. But in exchange, the junior worker got a supervised sandbox. They got a safe environment to learn how the company operates, to make small, low-stakes mistakes, and most importantly, to build professional judgment.
Ah, the essential learning by doing phase of a career.
Exactly. AI breaks that contract entirely because it completely decouples the execution of the task from the development of the skill.
You know, that makes me think of an espresso machine.
An espresso machine.
Yeah, it's like, imagine a local coffee shop buying this state-of-the-art, fully automated espresso machine, and then the owner fires all the junior baristas because the machine makes a perfect latte every time.
Right.
But then a year later, the machine breaks down, or they want to create a new signature drink. And the owner suddenly realizes nobody's left in the shop who actually knows how to taste test the coffee or fix the boiler when it breaks.
That is exactly what's happening. Another way to look at it is like GPS technology.
Oh, yeah, how we all used to drive.
Right. Before we all had GPS on our phones, you learned to navigate a new city by getting lost, taking wrong turns, paying attention to landmarks.
Hmm.
You slowly build this complex mental map in your head.
And now you just blindly follow the blue line.
Exactly. The GPS gets you to your destination perfectly, but if your phone battery dies, you have absolutely no idea where you are. AI is functioning like corporate GPS. It gets the task done efficiently, but the junior worker never builds the mental map of the business.
Because they didn't have to struggle through the data themselves.
Right. When you just review an AI-generated report, you don't inherently understand the underlying data relationships. You don't know the historical context of why the data looks that way. Organizations in tech and finance are chasing efficiency, cutting headcount at the bottom, but they've traded their long-term capability for a short-term financial win.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If the AI is handling all the simple stuff, what happens to the complicated stuff? Because AI can't negotiate a nuanced client dispute, right? Or catch a subtle contextual error in a financial model.
No, it definitely can't.
So who handles those? Do they just pile up on the senior team's desks?
Yes. That brings us to the first major hidden cost of this hauling out process, which is task escalation.
Task escalation.
Right. AI is incredible at pattern recognition, but it struggles immensely with novel situations, complex contextual judgment, and ethical reasoning. So when you eliminate the junior staff, but the AI can't quite finish the entire job, those leftover routine tasks and complicated edge cases don't just disappear. They escalate.
Wow. Up the chain.
Straight up the chain. They move directly to your highly paid senior workers.
So if you're a senior manager listening to this right now, you are probably already feeling the impact of this.
Oh, absolutely.
You're trying to focus on high-level strategy,
Yeah.
right? You're leading your team. But suddenly you're spending 3 hours manually fixing a flawed AI-generated data set because you literally no longer have a junior analyst on your team to do it for you.
And the predictable result of that dynamic is massive burnout and disengagement at the top levels of the company. The financial savings the organization thought they were getting, they vanish entirely.
Because you're paying a premium for grunt work.
Exactly. They are now paying a senior director's salary for entry-level execution. You have senior talent totally overwhelmed by task absorption.
Yikes. And Westover's research points out an even bigger structural problem looming on the horizon. He calls it a 3 to 7 year time bomb.
Yeah, the time bomb. We are talking about succession pipeline disruption.
The pipeline.
Right. Organizations historically build their leadership by promoting from within. You move people from junior roles to middle management and eventually to senior leadership. When you shrink your entry-level cohort by 40% today,
You're going to feel that later.
you are creating a gaping middle management talent shortage that won't actually manifest for another 3 to 7 years.
And by the time that pipeline bomb goes off, the executives who cut the entry-level budget to look good on a quarterly earnings report have probably collected their bonuses and moved on to another company.
Unfortunately, yes. That's often how it goes.
But wait, I want to push back on another hidden cost the research mentions, innovation stagnation.
Right.
Because, honestly, doesn't AI give us more ideas? I mean, generative AI can brainstorm 100 different marketing concepts or product features in 10 seconds. How are we stagnating if we have all those ideas?
Well, generative AI can produce volume, absolutely. But it relies entirely on historical data. It just recombines what already exists.
Oh, I see.
Junior workers, especially recent graduates, they bring what we call fresh eyes to a company. They come in with the latest academic thinking, shifting cultural perspectives, and crucially, a natural willingness to question established practices. They ask, why do we do it this way?
And AI doesn't ask why.
Exactly. AI does not ask why.
Right.
It simply optimizes the way you already do it. If you don't have that constant influx of newcomers challenging the status quo, the organization's mental models become rigid. You lose cognitive diversity.
You just end up doing things the exact same way forever, just slightly faster.
Precisely.
Man, so for someone listening right now who is just starting out, or maybe they're trying to pivot into a new industry, this feels like an impossible landscape. What does this actually mean for their career trajectory?
The research shows a very stark divergence happening in the labor market. It's really splitting into two paths. For some, this hollowing out creates severe career scarring.
Career scarring? That sounds brutal.
It is. If you cannot get that crucial first job because the entry-level tier has been automated, you face extended unemployment or underemployment. Economically, that can permanently depress your lifetime earnings. It alters the entire trajectory of your professional life.
It's essentially missing the on-ramp to the highway while everyone else speeds by.
That's exactly it. But on the flip side, For workers who do manage to secure a role and successfully learn to partner with AI, the complete opposite happens. We're seeing a phenomenon of accelerated capability building.
Wait, really? Accelerated?
Yeah, because the AI is handling the boring, routine execution, these junior workers are focusing on strategic thinking, data validation, and complex judgment right from day one. Some are gaining the equivalent of 2 to 3 years of traditional career experience in just a matter of months.
Okay, so just deleting the bottom of the pyramid to save a buck is organizational suicide. You ruin the talent pipeline, you burn out your senior staff with task escalation, and you kill human-driven innovation. The smartest organizations out there must be doing something else. They must be changing what entry level actually means to avoid this trap.
They are. They're fundamentally redefining the architecture of the junior role. They're shifting the paradigm entirely away from task execution and moving it toward judgment application, AI validation, and insight synthesis.
So it's like moving from being the person manually digging a ditch with a shovel to being the person operating the heavy machinery.
I love that analogy. Yeah,
You aren't physically shoveling the dirt anymore, but you absolutely need the situational judgment to know exactly where to dig, how deep to go, and when to stop digging.
exactly. The new entry-level worker isn't generating the raw data. They're evaluating the machine's output. They're hunting for the edge cases where the AI hallucinated or got the context wrong. And they're translating that automated analysis into actionable business insight.
Do we have real-world examples of this working?
We do. Westover highlights Deloitte as a prime example. They completely restructured their entry-level consulting roles.
Oh, wow. How did that work?
Yeah. Well, in the past, a brand new consultant would spend their first 6 months just gathering industry data and formatting hundreds of slide decks. Now, they use AI to assist with all of that heavy lifting. So instead of formatting slides, these new hires immediately focus on client interviews, stakeholder mapping, and change management planning.
Wait, let's pause on that because that sounds incredibly risky.
It does, right?
Yeah. How does a 22-year-old consultant with zero real-world business experience successfully handle a sensitive client interview? Previously, they learned the context of a client's business by spending 6 months deep in the data. If they skip that foundational step, aren't they just going to make embarrassing, costly mistakes in front of a Fortune 500 client?
It's a massive risk if you don't overhaul your training alongside the technology. But Deloitte and similar firms aren't just throwing these young consultants to the wolves. They use AI as a high-fidelity training simulator and a constant co-pilot.
Oh, a simulator. That's smart.
Yeah. The AI handles the data extraction, but the firm heavily invests in teaching the junior consultant how to ask the right questions. They're deeply trained in prompting the AI, stress testing its logic, and evaluating its output against historical case studies.
So when they finally sit down with a client,
Right, when they sit down with a client, they aren't relying on their own 20 years of industry experience. They're acting as a strategic conduit for the AI's analytical power, filtered through human empathy and communication skills.
that makes a lot of sense. They become validators and communicators rather than just human calculators.
Exactly. And Deloitte reports that these new hires are reaching full client-facing capability 40% faster than they did under the old model.
40% faster. That is a massive competitive advantage.
And it's not just consulting either. Siemens is doing something very similar with their junior engineers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Instead of a junior engineer spending weeks drafting a single component design from scratch, they use generative AI to produce a dozen different design options instantly. Then, the human engineer uses their judgment to evaluate those options against real-world cost parameters, supply chain realities, and manufacturing constraints.
So cool. Are banks doing this too?
Absolutely. JP Morgan Chase is another fascinating case study. They've created what they call AI partnership roles for their new analysts.
AI partnership. I like the sound of that.
Right. The AI handles the heavy quantitative data analysis, but the human analyst is explicitly responsible for navigating the complex cases. They weigh the ethical considerations of a financial move, and they handle the nuance of client communication.
So they're actively designing roles where humans and AI play to their respective distinct strengths.
Precisely.
Wait, if AI is pushing all this routine work up to senior managers, burning them out, and we're losing that crucial learning by doing phase, wouldn't the smart play be for some companies to actually stop automating certain things?
That's a great question.
Even if it costs more, shouldn't they artificially keep some tasks manual just to keep the corporate ecosystem balanced and ensure people actually learn?
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is one of the most counterintuitive trends Westover's research highlights. Selective rehumanization.
Selective rehumanization. I love that term. Deliberately protecting the human element, even when a machine could technically do it faster and cheaper.
Right. These organizations recognize that certain tasks are essential for human learning or for building trust-based relationships, and that long-term value significantly outweighs the pure short-term efficiency of automation.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Consider Clifford Chance, the major global law firm.
Okay.
They have access to AI tools that can scan, analyze, and summarize thousands of pages of legal documents in a matter of seconds. But they still require their junior associates to review many of those documents manually.
Because reviewing those documents manually, line by line, is the only way a young lawyer builds that mental map we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It's how they internalize complex legal reasoning and learn the specific, messy nuances of a client's history. If you let the AI do all the reading, the junior associate never builds the cognitive muscles required to eventually become a senior partner who can strategize a defense.
The firm is actively protecting the learning process itself.
Yes, and Nordstrom, the retailer, applies the same logic to customer relationships. They're deliberately limiting the use of AI in their customer service channels
Really? Why?
because genuine human interaction builds deep customer loyalty. But internally, handling those unpredictable, sometimes frustrating customer interactions teaches their employees crucial problem-solving skills. It teaches patience and empathy that you simply cannot learn from reading a corporate manual or reviewing an AI transcript.
So they're prioritizing cultural identity and relationship building over relentless cost cutting.
Exactly.
But, the most wild strategy to me comes from the tech giant Cognizant. We've been talking about companies cutting entry-level jobs by 40%. But Cognizant made the mind-blowing decision to hire 25,000 fresh graduates in 2025.
It's a huge move.
It's a massive volume bet. While everyone else is slashing budgets, they are doubling down on the pipeline. Why?
Because Cognizant's leadership realized that these fresh graduates, these digital natives, are actually the best possible evangelists for accelerating AI adoption across the entire legacy company. They're utilizing a strategy of reverse mentoring.
Let's be real about corporate dynamics here for a second.
Okay, sure.
How does a 22-year-old fresh out of college successfully reverse mentor a 50-year-old vice president? I mean, in a rigid corporate hierarchy, doesn't a young kid coming in and telling a senior executive how to do their job just bruise egos and create massive resentment?
It absolutely can if it's handled poorly.
Yeah.
The brilliance is in how Cognizant and others structure that dynamic.
Yeah.
It's not the 22-year-old walking into an office and saying, hey, you're doing this wrong.
Right.
It's about pairing them together on specific high-stakes projects.
Right.
The senior leader provides the deep industry expertise and the strategic vision, while the junior employee acts almost as their personal AI translator.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. The senior leader says, I need to find a hidden pattern in these 10 years of supply chain disruptions. And the junior employee says, great, let's build a custom prompt for that right now.
Wow.
The senior leader gets a massive operational win, their ego is protected, and they organically see the immense value of the tool.
That's brilliant. It's totally symbiotic. The junior worker gets incredible face time and strategic context from the executive, and the executive gets a massive productivity boost without having to go back to school to learn prompt engineering.
Exactly. And to make sure these massive cohorts of new hires are actually ready to step into these AI translator roles, companies are reaching all the way back to the universities to build entirely new pipelines.
Google and Accenture are doing this right.
They are. They're no longer just showing up at college career fairs with a booth and a sign-up sheet. They're partnering directly with universities to fundamentally co-develop the academic curriculums.
But what does a co-developed curriculum actually look like? Are they just teaching students how to write better ChatGPT prompts, or is it something deeper?
It is much deeper than prompt engineering. They're co-funding programs, providing guest instructors from the corporate world, and offering real-world, messy data sets for students to practice on.
So they're working with real business problems.
Yes, they're teaching students how to critically evaluate AI hallucinations, how to integrate AI workflows into team environments, and how to maintain data security. So when these students finally enter the workforce, their expectations are already calibrated.
They know how to work seamlessly alongside AI.
Exactly. Which means they ramp up and become productive business assets much faster.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this right now? Whether you are a college senior looking out at a terrifying job market, or maybe you're a senior director trying to build a resilient, future-proof team. The key takeaway here is developing what Westover calls dynamic capabilities.
Right. The old, rigid job descriptions where you just executed one specific task, those are dead. You need a modular skill framework now.
Because it's no longer just about knowing how to write code in Python or how to draft a press release. Those are easily automated executions.
Exactly. It's about combining AI fluency with the complex traits that machines simply do not possess: empathy, contextual judgment, the ability to manage messy human relationships and navigate office politics.
The soft skills.
Yeah, the truly human skills.
Yeah.
The future belongs to the worker who can seamlessly weave those uniquely human capabilities together with whatever output the AI hands them.
That's such an empowering way to look at it.
It is. But, when you look at how all of this fundamentally shifts the way we acquire and transfer knowledge, it raises a profound, lingering question.
What's that?
Well, the future of work, as we laid out today, relies heavily on human beings validating, judging, and tweaking the outputs generated by AI.
Right.
But we have to remember that current AI models are trained on historical human data. That is data generated by generations of humans who learn their craft the hard way, by doing the foundational grunt work from scratch, making mistakes, and slowly building original expertise.
Oh, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens in 15 or 20 years? If nobody is learning by doing the brunt work anymore because the AI does it all, where does new original human insight actually come from?
Wow.
Are we risking a future where original paradigm-shifting human intuition slowly degrades? We might find ourselves trapped in a closed loop, an echo chamber of recycled AI outputs, simply because we optimized away the messy, friction-filled process of human learning.
That is a chilling thought to leave on. If we don't have the messy learning process, we might just be echoing the past forever.
Exactly.
Well, take a look at your own daily tasks tomorrow and ask yourself, am I just executing or am I validating, synthesizing, and applying judgment? Because that is exactly where your future is being decided. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning the scaffolding.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu. With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.